All right, folks. Good morning. It's morning for me. I don't know when you're watching this. I suppose it could be any time. Um, Today we're going to relate um, the opening up of an experience around mushroom cultivation. Um, this meme, I suppose you'd say, or lesson, um, visual lesson, is of a wild mushroom, a mushroom that grows in forest floors. This Amanita muscaria is mycorrhizal and requires living cohabitants to be able to form and fruit. The types of mushrooms we grow in cultivation, however, only need dead things to live on. They're saprophytes. But it is true that all mushrooms are edible. You can put them in your mouth and chew them up and swallow. But some only once in a lifetime, meaning, of course, some kill you. um, there's a lot of resistance to learning about mushrooms because of this fact. It seems like people forget that there's plenty of poisonous foods in the world, plenty of poisonous um, comestibles that we can come across in our world of different types. But mushrooms seem to have more mystery. They're strange looking. They come out after it rains. They're ephemeral, which means they only last a little bit of time. So all these things are a little bit mysterious to people. Whereas like a piece of corn or a squash like grows in a very apparent way for a long time above ground and ripens slowly over time. So most foods that we eat, we've got a good deal of time to get used to them, to get to know them before we stick them in our mouth. Mushrooms are like, is this it? Is this something we should eat or no? Um, but rest assured, in mushroom cultivation, we take out almost all of those variables. There's really no chance that you could eat a poisonous mushroom if you're cultivating it from spawn. Um, and very few poisonous mushrooms even grow in the way that we will try to grow them. So I'm going to go to full view here. Okay. So, like usual, we want to be able to speak using the same terms. Um, Vocabulary is a large part of what it means to be in a community of people that speak about the same thing, right? So let's go over the basic words of mushroom cultivation so that we're using them all in the same way, or at least close to the same way. And also, when I learned about mushrooms, I was already a pretty avid farmer and gardener, so it helped me to um, set up my understanding of mushrooms in relation to plants. So I'll make some analogies for you between mushroom cultivation and horticulture or plant cultivation, and we call those analogies. When you um, put two systems in relation to one another to compare them. So spores, most people know about spores. These are things that might cause you to sneeze. They they are the smallest propagule of species of mushrooms. They behave a little bit like a seed, although they're not. They don't have the quality of a seed of energy storage, right? So they're so small they don't have with them that package of starch that endosperm that plant seeds have. Um, but it's a pretty good comparison. They are recombinant, so like in a plant seed, the genetics of the parents are combined to make a new uh, genetic combination in the offspring. This is true for mushrooms as well. Um, so that gives each line or each generation from the parent the possibility to adapt and change. We won't be working with spores. Uh, just know that they exist and they're part of quality later when we're harvesting them. Mushroom fruits themselves are considered mature when they drop spores, and spores are a good indicator of species at certain times of a mushroom's life cycle. But just know that spores are not spawn, even though they start with the same letter. Spawn is a growing mycelium mass. So spawn is like the root system or the active growth process that underlies the mushroom's fruiting capacity. I hope you could see this. This is a oyster mushroom project, and this would be could be considered a spawn. It's got the white mycelium. Mycelium is the main body of a mushroom growth, and it's like white, typically white. Sometimes it can be yellow or other colors, but most of what we grow, the mycelium is white. And it has a good fragrance. It doesn't smell mildewy or moldy in the sense of like something you pull out of your fridge, but it has some of the same looks as that. So spawn is like to me like a transplant. It's something that's already up and going. Like when we transplant the tomatoes up, you see the tomato plant. It's growing. It has a lot of roots to get started in the new material that you put it into. This is the same way. Spawn, it's got a lot of energy to grow into new food or substrate. And that's the kind of last of the S. The substrate would be the material that the mushroom can grow into. Mushrooms are like us. They need to eat other things to survive and grow and change. We call that heterotroph, which is kind of is contrasted with autotrophs, which plants are, right? Autotroph means self-feeding, and in a way, plants feed themselves by making their major energy source from sunlight. Mushrooms must feed themselves by taking the energy that other creatures, other organisms have accumulated. So the mushrooms that we're going to be working with take their energy from straw or cardboard or coffee grounds. They use high carbon substrates. We'll be working with another mushroom that we put outside, the wine caps. They eat carbon sources, but also some bacteria, and they like to grow in kind of rotted down wood chip beds. So the word substrate means this food or this material that mushrooms have to eat to stay alive and to grow and change. So substrate is kind of sciencey, but we can call it mushroom food. But in a way, we prepare substrate like we would prepare garden beds. We weed the substrate. We get all the other organisms out of it. We aerate it and get it to a nice moisture level. So these are all the same things we do to garden beds. We just do it in a smaller way. And so what we eventually eat when we eat a mushroom, in mycoculture we call fruits. I don't know why. It doesn't really look like a fruit. It certainly doesn't taste like fruits that you know of, but it is the body of the organism that expresses its reproductive bodies. So in that same way, fruits, of course, have seeds in the middle, and that seed is what carries on the next generation of the plant. Fruits, in the mushrooming sense, host the spore or develop the spore, and that's what carries on that organism into the next generation. So that's a useful comparison, and we do call these mushrooms fruits in the end. Despite that name, we usually don't get children to eat them more because of it. So I want to show just a few pictures here. This is, I think you can see it even if I have it in this bigger. This is oyster mushrooms in the wild here in Michigan. They're kind of a dull, duff-colored mushroom. They have a pretty distinct growth pattern in that they're a shelf fungi, which means they grow kind of sideways off of material. They don't have that radially symmetric cap that a lot of mushrooms have otherwise. So they're usually asymmetrical. They have they're sided, right? And they grow on dead trees or dying trees typically. And in this case, dying soft hardwood trees, which is not a paradox. By hardwood we mean trees that are deciduous and have broad leaves. So these like to grow on cottonwood or willow, soft-wooded hardwoods. Here is a way that we replicate that as a producer, as a myco-cultivator. We could take the same species of wood, inoculate it with a kind of spawn, and that's what you see, this white material growing in these cuts. And then we can get oysters to grow out of this technique called the totem method. Totems, as they sort of look like stacked up heads or stacked up deities, when we totem logs, we get an opportunity to put spawn at every certain interval in the log. So while this log looks stuck together, it's actually cut into rounds and then restacked. And then as the spawn grows between the layers, it kind of knits the rounds back together into the totem. You can't really grow totems to any length tall. They'll eventually topple or not be stable. Also, it's important to grow them within a certain range of the soil so they stay moist and humid. These totems are probably about 2 feet tall. We won't be using this method, but it's a good way to show how similar, how we kind of stole or riffed on what nature does already to create a culture. We can get super freaky with oyster mushrooms, again, using the fact that they can consume a number of substrates, all of which are carbon containing. An artist here got the oyster mushrooms to grow on the straw and horsehair packed furniture of old. Modern furniture is often packed with polyfill or like plastic essentially, and that wouldn't grow mushrooms, right? As far as we know, we don't have mushrooms that can eat polyesters or synthetic hydrocarbons, but they can eat natural hydrocarbons like cotton, wool. I don't know about wool. Let me get back to you about wool, but cotton, straw, newspaper, etc. So this cultivator was able to get this freaky old chair to colonize and fruit. This was like even a little bit freakier of a chair, not fruiting as well, so it's hard to say. Maybe this was packed with cotton. So old furniture is a possible thing mushrooms can eat. Another cultivator inoculated all these surplus library books and laid them out in different patterns to create like a eerie mushroom eats human society sort of message. I don't know what kind of message it is, but you can see, I'll blow it up a little bit here. You could see the oyster mushrooms fruiting from the gaps in the books. It's possible for this to happen on its own. One can imagine spores from this nearby forest landing and germinating and becoming myceliated in the books. But these were inoculated specifically by cultivators. Here is, and this will be available to you. Here is a schematic, like a diagram of normal cultivation practices. Just quickly, I want to illustrate where we're going to start. We're going to start with grain spawn or sawdust spawn. It'll come in these bags, these aseptic, breathable bags. And then from there, we'll inoculate a bulk substrate, in our case, straw, and then put them into bags in buckets. This process that happens before the spawn is made is more technical and happens at the level of the spawn producer. There's a few stages in there that are sterile techniques, which we won't be working with, which are just kind of beyond our skills. Eventually we'd be able to learn it together, but it would take a whole class to figure out sterile culture and be able to do it together. Not much more time. I'll post this to Canvas right now. But here, just so you could see the difference between pasteurizing and sterilizing, we don't use those terms interchangeably. We'll be pasteurizing our straw, not sterilizing it. And here's just some pictures of a bucket culture. Pretty good, right? That's a reusable container to make fruits from. This is Tip's favorite, the laundry basket culture, which works really well in very humid environments. But I'm going to post this to Canvas. I'll see you guys on Monday, and we'll do this together. Okay? Bye bye.